we are joined in by former Indian High Commissioner to Canada and also Ambassador to Seoul. We're joined in by Mr. Vishnu Prakash, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, who's joining us live now. And we're also joined in by Mr. Jong-un Kim, who is a defense analyst who is joining us from Seoul. Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, let me begin by asking you this. You know, we just saw what transpired in the demilitarized zone of the Panmunjom village between North and South Korea. How significant do you think, sir, this is in reassuring to the North Koreans that Donald Trump means business and he would like to proceed further with the denuclearization talks?
Mohammed, President Trump has just shown or reiterated, proven the fact that diplomacy is the art of the impossible. As I was seeing the visuals, it reminded me of the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was an actual fall of the Berlin Wall. Today was like virtual fall of the Berlin Wall. And President Trump has done what nobody else could have done. He has made history. How it will pan out is anybody's guess, but this is a momentous moment in the Korean Peninsula and in the diplomatic journey of our planet. I mean, it is amazing. Now, that said, let me also add a few more comments. One, while it seems to be spontaneous, in diplomacy, nothing or very often what you see is not what actually takes place. I have followed the Korean Peninsula for a very long time, and spontaneity is not the forte of the Korean Peninsula. So I will not be surprised if not back channels, but the sides were in touch quietly to prepare for that. I would bet on a choreographed spontaneity. And there are some indications already because Stephen Biegun, who was yesterday day before yesterday speaking to his South Korean counterpart, for the first time said that USA will be constructive and is willing to look at parallel and simultaneous progress. So obviously there is a lot cooking.
Right.
And I also have a feeling that Chairman Kim was blindsided at Hanoi. He would have never gone to come back empty-handed. So there was a gulf somewhere. There was a gap in what must have been told to him privately and what happened. So there is really a rethink on the part of the US. And the good cop, bad cop act has now been kind of changed, at least, I don't know whether permanently or temporarily, into a good cop act. And lastly, President Trump has just further solidified his popularity in the US. And I think President Trump has trumped it.
Absolutely, indeed. That's a significant thing. And also what you compared, that this is a moment that could perhaps be compared to the fall of the Berlin Wall. If I could just dwell a little bit further on this. You know, North Korea, in terms of it having carried out the negotiations since that historic summit that took place in Singapore in the month of June last year, has made certain, progress in trying to meet the American expectations. They've put a moratorium on nuclear testing. They've put a moratorium on the testing of the intercontinental ballistic missiles. They've also dismantled, to a certain extent, their nuclear testing facility at Pyongyang. But look at what the Americans have got on the table on the other side. They've said that the sanctions will not be lifted until the denuclearization process is complete. With that being the stand, do you think, realistically, although it's a great photo opportunity that we saw today, that the talks can proceed from here?
They very much, it's not just a photo of Muhammad, it is much more than that. Symbolism has a very important place in diplomatic affairs.
Right.
Chairman Kim was under a lot of pressure. He is a demigod in North Korea. He cannot be seen to be doing anything wrong.
Right.
I mean, how can a demigod do anything wrong? And he was made to have committed a huge error of judgment. So, I mean, he was under a lot of pressure. This enables him to give a shot in his arm. And the best part is that this photo op, so-called photo op, was done without any expectations.
Right.
So there was no expectation from this meeting other than a handshake, saying the good things, saying the right things. And in this, Chairman Kim Jong-un comes out very well. It's a huge boost, a shot in the arm for President Moon Jae-in's diplomatic or mediatory role, and certainly for President Trump. I mean, we keep on using the cliche win-win-win. But this is a win-win-win. Because every side, and it is bringing back the talks back on the rails.
Right.
But the issues remain very much so, because his stepping onto the North Korean soil is a symbolic thing, but does not mean anything in terms of guaranteeing the security of North Korea. So, but the big issue still remains, which you alluded to, is denuclearization, sanctions, and so on and so forth. But I have a feeling that there is a rethink on the American part. There is a shift of how they are going to approach it. At times they adopt a very hardline approach. At times they adopt a more realistic approach.
Right.
I think we are entering the phase of a realistic approach.
All right. That's a significant point that you've made. And let me bring in Mr. Jong-un Kim, who has been waiting very patiently for us from Seoul. Mr. Kim, looking as to what played out at the Panmunjom village at the demilitarized zone, Donald Trump stepping onto the North Korean soil and also extending the invite for Kim Jong-un to visit the White House. How do you see this panning out from here? Because one of the key issues was the guarantee of security that the North Korean regime is in fact looking on. Do you think those fears of the North Koreans have been allayed to a certain extent by this very symbolic photo opportunity that we saw play out at Panmunjom today?
Yeah, this is so many news today, especially to Kim Jong-un, not just to Trump. He was surprised by the Trump tweeting when he woke up, and he accepted the Trump invitation and meeting with the American president in North Korea and Seoul for the first time, especially since 1945, after independence from the Japan. And also, he was very happy to accept the invitation from the White House. I think that after visiting White House, I think that so many trust-building measures will be coming out. I think it's including maybe American exchanging students into the American Ivy League university like the MIT or some kind of also relation officer in Pyongyang will be maybe coming out if the denuclearization process is complete. So I think it's Trump now would like to accept step by step trust first negotiation from the Kim Jong-un point of view. And Kim Jong-un continuously has asked for the security guarantee rather than just sanction release. So Trump may be something doing when Kim Jong-un visited in White House. So I think it's a very positive news today for the denuclearization process. And Trump and Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in now is something again starting the denuclearization process of the Korean Peninsula. Absolutely, indeed. A very significant, in fact, part of bringing the talks back on track. Now, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, a lot of people would be looking as to what played out today, and they'd also be, thinking about what played out on the 20th of June when President Xi Jinping of China had visited Pyongyang. Now, although this, some would suggest was not as spontaneous a visit on the part of the U.S. president, but some would also say that this visit was precipitated because of the kind of rapport and camaraderie that we saw that was exhibited by President Xi Jinping and Chairman Kim Jong-un. How much do you think has been the role of Xi Jinping in precipitating this visit by the American president today to the demilitarized zone?
I think that's a very good point, and we need to reflect on that. Certainly, the visit of President Xi Jinping to Pyongyang was an important visit, and it did send out a message to all capitals that needed to be sent out. China has been trying to deal itself back into the game and wants a spot on the negotiating table, which US does not want it to give, because US wants to deal with North Korea directly, and North Korea also prefers to deal with the US directly. But President Xi Jinping very much wanted to be able to carry a message from Kim Jong-un to President Trump. And that was one of the objectives, because the timing of his visit to Pyongyang was quite significant.
Right.
And I'm sure that he has carried the message from Kim Jong-un, I think, which would be something like saying that, look, Kim Jong-un is very serious about denuclearization, that he wants economic development, etc. And China endorses his approach. So that, or something to that effect, would be the message from Xi Jinping to President Trump. So, and the very fact that Kim Jong-un is now has got a slightly stronger hand. I mean, he was considerably weakened after the Hanoi summit.
Right.
So he has a stronger hand. He has China's backing, and he has also dealt with. He has never criticized Trump. I mean, the way they have all played out, he has demanded that Bolton be removed, Pompeo be removed, but they have always praised Trump. And there is a love fest going between, or the bromance going between the two people. So it has been a very deft diplomacy. And the message that went out to President Trump or the White House was that, look, if they only use a stick, it is not going to work. And earlier in the bulletin, you were talking about sanctions. Even the U.S. does not dilute sanctions. They will allow, I think, South Korea and China to provide food aid. Right. They will kind of look at the other ways and or do allow some kind of, on humanitarian considerations, allow something. Because again, this is a minor detail. But I don't see the visit of Kim Jong-un to the U.S. happening in a hurry, because he will not be blindsided again.
Right.
It's a feel-good thing, meeting. They are paving the ground for reopening of the dialogue, but there'll be a lot of spade work to be done.
All right.
And yeah.
Absolutely, indeed. That is a significant thing. It needs to be looked at as to how soon, that invite to the White House will in fact be acted upon. And Mr. Jong-un Kim, if I can bring you in on this, this meeting between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un will be looked at very closely, but I would also like you to weigh in on what it does to the image of Kim Jong-un within the region in Korea and also on the world stage at large.
Kim Jong-un's image is just completely has changed over the 2 years. We remember the sixth nuclear weapon test. He assassinated his uncle and the other guys, purged so many people. But now when Trump met with Kim Jong-un, now the international community focusing on he is as a normal leader, and he is a young, reform-minded leader who want to reform North Korean economy and try to open the border of the North Korea step by step. So maybe he probably visited in White House, and he maybe visited in New York City or Chicago or some area. Maybe American people are more understanding. He is totally different from his father and his great-father, and he wants to do something, and also he wants to independent from Chinese influence as well, even though he has want to keep with a good relationship with China. But already more than 95% of total trade from North Korea is all about China. So as a young leader, he really want to independent from the China, economically, politically, and psychologically. So Kim Jong-un, as a young, reform-minded leader, now is at the stage. Trump is a good friend of him to introduce himself to the United Nations or international community. And this is a very good chance to start making.
All right, what we are looking at, Mr. Jong-un Kim, sorry for interrupting you there. What we're looking at right now on our screens are live visuals from the Panmunjom village. The meeting between the two leaders, we're given to understand, has ended, and they're now walking towards the demarcation line between North and South Korea. There we saw President Donald Trump along with the North Korean chairman Kim Jong-un after this, what has been described as a huge and a significant photo opportunity that is filled with symbolism. The debacle at Hanoi, that's now been forgotten. The talks are now back on track. And what we've seen is something that is unprecedented. Donald Trump has become the first sitting American president to set foot on North Korean soil, and one expects that the talks will proceed at a much faster rate from here. There is also this White House invite that's been extended to Kim Jong-un, and it remains to be seen as to how soon that White House invite will, of course, be acted upon. And this has been an extremely significant visit between the two leaders, more so for Kim Jong-un. Who could have thought that he would have had the two most powerful leaders of the world, Xi Jinping on the 20th of June, visiting Pyongyang, and today the US President Donald Trump, on the back of an invite that he had given out via a tweet, meeting him at the Panmunjom village in the demilitarized zone.
A historical moment, especially to Korean, also to international community, because the military zone is the final place of the Cold War. Right. Already in 1991, Cold War ended, but now you see a demilitarized zone is only placed from the Cold War history. So American president actually he visited the North Korean soil, and also Kim Jong-un just response to the Trump tweet in 24 hours. So this is not just a show moment, but also show strong potential for the next step. So this is a very strong trust event today among three national leaders.
Absolutely.
We might get maybe Kim Jong-un in Washington in this year, maybe Trump in next year. Everything is possible. So Trump showed his strong willingness to become the leader in finishing a final Cold War in the world.
Absolutely, the remnants of the Cold War, perhaps that is what in fact has been knocked over. That was a very significant point that you made there, Mr. Jong Kim. And lastly, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, the question that I would like to ask you is on perhaps a lighter note. Donald Trump has been talking about the Nobel Prize. Do you think this effort that he's made to try and normalize the relationship between the United States and North Korea now actually makes him eligible perhaps for a Nobel Prize?
Well, he is certainly aspiring for Nobel Peace Prize, and if he managed to find the modus vivendi, there is no reason why he should not get the coveted Peace Prize. People have gotten Nobel Peace Prize for much less than that. What Trump has managed to do, along with his quote-unquote friend Kim Jong-un, is indeed unprecedented. Very rarely in history do you see dramatic developments. So certainly, the talks are back on track, but the Gulf remains. The bonhomie is back on track, but the trust deficit remains, and there's a huge trust deficit. But it is, I think, credit also must go to Moon Jae-in, who has been very astute mediator, giving credit to everybody except for him. And, it is Korean theater.
Ambassador, I would have to interrupt you there. We see Donald Trump addressing the media. Let's listen in.
Nobody knows how things turn out, but certainly this was a great day. This was a very legendary, very historic day. It was quick notice. Nobody saw this coming. And it was great that he was able to react so quickly and that we were all able to react so quickly. But in speaking with President Moon, oftentimes he was saying this is historic, just the meeting is historic, and I think there's something to that. It'll be even more historic if something comes of it, something very important. But a lot has already come of it, because you see what's going on, and you see what's happening, and you see the level of relationship as opposed to the way it was when I came into office. When I came into office, it was a fiery mess. It was bad things were going on. And the end of the other administration, the last administration, was nothing but trouble. You saw what was happening. I mean, you don't report it accurately, but that's okay. Someday history will record it accurately. I can just say that for 2.5 years, we've had peace. For 2.5 years, with nothing signed. It was just based on relationship. But President Moon was saying very strongly that he said he would have never believed that a thing could go on like this, so friendly, so peacefully, for so long. So we've agreed to have teams set up. We're going to have, the United States will have a team. Secretary of State Pompeo will pick it. We already know the gentleman. Good luck, Steve.
Thanks, sir.
And you all know Steve. He's a pro and a good man, and he likes both countries very much. So Steve's going to head it up, and under the auspices of our great Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. And what's going to happen is over the next 2 or 3 weeks, the teams are going to start working to see whether or not they can do something. Very big stuff, pretty complicated, but not as complicated as people think. A lot of our great triumphs have been based on relationship. And this is one where, I mean, it's been just a different story. You saw when they were showing us around, when they were showing President Moon and myself around, and they were talking about 2.5, 3 years ago, it was really dangerous out there. You couldn't move. People were being killed. A lot of bad things were happening. And they said since Singapore, it's been a whole different ballgame. And I was telling Chairman Kim that actually, to me, Hanoi was a great success. The press reported it the opposite. But you need that, and you sometimes need things like that to happen. But it was a great success because we maintained our relationship. So we're going to have teams. They're going to meet over the next few weeks, and they're going to start a process, and we'll see what happens. And I'd like to have, first of all, I guess you'll do a little interpretation, and then we'll have the president say a few words.
All right, so this, of course, has been a historic meeting, a photo opportunity filled with symbolism where U.S. President Donald Trump met with Kim Jong-un at the Panmunjom village at the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. And I should thank the guests who joined us on this broadcast, Ambassador Vishnu Prakash, and also our guest who joined us from Seoul, Jong-un Kim, who's a defense analyst. Thank you very much indeed, both you gentlemen, for joining us on this broadcast.